Pahkitew Island is the final season of the original Total Drama franchise. Yes, there was the Redonkulous Race and Total Drama-Rama, but Pahkitew Island was the last competition-based season in the original timeline. I said last time that I consider Pahkitew Island to be slightly superior to All-Stars, and I still stand by that. But it's only better in how it's not nearly as much of a train wreck as All-Stars was. Don't get me wrong, there's still plenty of stupid shit in this season. Hell, I'd even argue that some things that the season does are some of the dumbest shit that the show has thrown at us. And I was admittedly looking forward to doing this season in particular, specifically because of one certain thing that happens. If you've seen this season, you know what I'm talking about already. If you haven't, well, brace yourself. You may come out of this thinking that it's even dumber than Gollum Ezekiel or Toxic Waste-Infested Dakota. I guess on that note, we should just get started. Ladies and gentlemen, the final original season of Total Drama, Pahkitew Island. Yes, as the name suggests, this season takes place on an entirely new island. I actually don't mind the fact that it's an entirely new island. Feels like something that could help keep the show fresh, and the fact that it's an entirely new cast, that also helps in my opinion. Unfortunately, it's not all good here. For one, those gameplay changes from the second generation cast, like the Chris McLean immunity statuette, they don't come back this time, so any sort of additional strategy that came from that feature being implemented is completely gone now, which just completely sucks. It actually added some genuine suspense to the gameplay, but we can't have that anymore apparently. The biggest difference between Pahkitew Island and Camp Wawanakwa is Pahkitew Island is a mechanical island. Okay. Yeah, see, I kid, but it actually becomes shockingly relevant later on in the season, so we'll come back to this. Other changes from past seasons include the fact that this show now more strongly emulates Survivor than any previous season. What do I mean by this? Well, you know those cabins that the campers would sleep in the first season? Yeah, those are fucking gone now. Now the contestants have to find their own shelter. And their own food. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Chef doesn't actually cook the meals for the contestants anymore, which means he is now a total liability. Oh wait, it gets even better. The prizes for the majority of the challenges now are just takeout meals for the winning team.
The Petting Zoo Barbecue. Someone else touched your dinner. We guarantee it.
Fuck you.
I get that this is like the standard for Survivor-esque reality shows, but having this happen now in Season 6, when in all the past seasons there were accommodations of some kind provided to the players, it's kind of jarring. Then again, it just feels more like the natural endpoint for the degradation of Chris's character. Chris is by far at his most sadistic and unbearable in this particular season. At least with Revenge of the Island and All-Stars, there were plenty of moments where I enjoyed having Chris on screen, even if he was a sadistic little sociopath. That's not really the case for Pahkitew Island. I can safely say that this is the season I enjoyed him the least. Chef Hatchet, on the other hand, he doesn't get a lot to do this season, which honestly sucks because he is one of my favorite characters of this entire franchise. But now it's time to get to the real meat of the cast. Of the 3 generations of contestants we've seen thus far into the franchise, this is by far the weakest overall. Now, there are still characters that I genuinely liked from this season, and other characters that I wish had gotten a lot more screen time than they did, but on the whole, it's again a step down from the Gen 2 cast. Much of this is sadly due to the show's reliance on stereotypes, and as the show runs longer, it gets a lot more difficult to create unique characters with unique stereotypes that don't feel cartoonish or idiotic. And unfortunately, I think they hit the wall here in that regard. For example, Beardo. Guess what his gimmick is? He makes video game sound effects. No, I didn't edit that in any way whatsoever. That is literally his gimmick. And it does absolutely nothing for me at all. Also, why the hell is his name Beardo? Who the hell names their kid Beardo? And why is he named Beardo if his gimmick is video game sounds?
Don't ask questions you aren't prepared to handle the answer to.
As you can imagine, Beardo is kind of useless. His shtick gets old very quickly, not just to me, but to his fellow contestants. He also does almost nothing in the first challenge to help his team win, which results in him getting the boot first.
It was really nice to meet all of you.
Oh, so we can speak like a normal person. Okay. You know, at least B's perpetual and eternal silence gave him some kind of edge. I brought this up with Stacy in Revenge of the Island, but the show got kind of lazy in portraying the characters that it wants to get rid of first versus the characters that it wants to focus on. With Ezekiel, his reason for being eliminated wasn't really prevalent until the last few minutes of his elimination episode. With Stacy and now Beardo, it was telegraphed almost from minute 1 that these two were going to be first eliminated in their respective seasons. I'll say this about him though, I don't find him nearly as annoying as I do Leonard. Leonard is a LARPer who cosplays as a wizard. Now that on its own would be perfectly fine, except for the fact that Leonard apparently cannot distinguish fantasy from reality. Like, the dude is legit convinced that he is an actual wizard who can perform powerful spells that can help his team win. I feel like I should be laughing at these antics, but I'm not. It's just a little bit too much for me. And you know, even in just 2 episodes, they do not give Leonard any time whatsoever to actually develop his character. All that happens is that he keeps saying random bullshit trying to make shit happen without actually doing anything, and nothing worked. The only reason Leonard made it to episode 2 was because Beardo was somehow an even less developed character. And don't worry, nobody is buying his wizard act. Well, I take that back. Sugar buys his wizarding act, but that's because she's probably the only character in this cast that's dumber than Leonard. He does return in the redonkulous race, and while he doesn't last long there either, he's much more tolerable there than he is here. Next are twins Amy and Sammy, or as the show likes to refer to as, Sammy.
Amy says everyone calls you Sammy, because you're the second twin. The lesser Amy, if you will.
Oh cool, we're doing the evil twin trope. Nice. Amy, that's the one with the mole, lives to torment her sister. Almost to the point where it's basically the only character trait she has in this season. Fortunately, Sammy finally reaches her limit and decides to get some revenge on her by pulling the old switcheroo in episode 3.
Ignore her. She's just trying to get sympathy, aren't you, Sammy?
The only downside to this was that she had to basically assume Amy's identity from there on out, so as her cover wouldn't be blown. The only one to actually know the truth was Jasmine, who actually formed a very nice friendship with Sammy. That was really nice to see. But ultimately, because she had to assume her sister's identity just to keep her rouse up, we really didn't get too much more development on her front as a character. Yeah, there were bits and pieces here and there about her becoming her own person and standing up for herself, but I really wanted to see more of that, you know? She doesn't really get much more time after booting her sister out. Oh, and speaking of Amy...
Amy? Sammy!
What the hell's going on?
So Amy was able to get all the way back to Pahkitew Island and came back just to get revenge on Sammy. Honestly, this part is one of the most out-of-this-world bonkers things that the show has ever done, and it's probably the highlight of the season if I'm being completely honest. And of course, it results in both of them leaving the show permanently in episode 5, so that was fun while it lasted, I guess. Except not really. Then there's Rodney. His shtick is that he falls in love with literally every single girl that looks in his direction. And no, that is not an exaggeration. I wish it was.
Breaking up with Jasmine was the hardest thing I have ever done.
What the are you talking about?
When in reality, nobody has a damn clue what the hell he's even saying half the time. His big moment to shine comes in episode 4, the Truth or Dare challenge. Unfortunately, when I say shine, I mean completely fall flat on his face. And I thought Leonard was bad at depicting fantasy from reality. No, Rodney just might be worse at that, and it earns him a rightful ejection out of the game. Which naturally brings us to...
Oh, and Ella,
Yes?
you sing again? You're off the show. Got it? Good.
Ella, the Disney princess ripoff that actually wants to be on a musical season of Total Drama. So given how much anxiety Ella's constant love of singing gives Chris, perhaps he regrets making the musical aspect a mandatory part of World Tour. Or maybe it's just that Ella's enjoying herself and is not actually suffering as a result of it. Regardless of the circumstances, Ella's singing tends to get on everyone's nerves, especially Chris, who threatens to eject her from the show if she keeps it up. Also, Sugar can't stand Ella, but not in the way that Chris can't stand Ella. No, Sugar's just a bitch about it, but I'll get to her later on. Long story short, Sugar schemes to get Ella ousted, and it works. Though, Ella doesn't seem too bothered by it.
My time on the show is finished and done, but that's not to say I didn't have fun.
First off, Chris, you really should see a proctologist. How else are you going to pull that stick out of your ass?
Go fuck yourself.
Secondly, Ella, This show is a walking death trap, and you had fun here? Look, girl, I like you, but...
Please seek some counseling.
Next is Topher, who honestly might just be the most wasted character of the entire season. Yeah, I know, we had a guy who literally did nothing but sound effects, and another guy who was convinced he was a fucking wizard. And this is the most wasted character? Honestly, yeah. His shtick is that he wants to take over Chris's job as host one day. If I'm being totally honest, I think that's the best idea for a total drama character we've seen throughout the series so far. Keyword idea. This definitely reeks of being a missed opportunity. Throughout the show, Topher will occasionally try to one-up Chris in the hosting department and get on his nerves. It gets to the point where Topher starts bragging that he's going to take over for Chris any day now, and so Chris decides to screw with him, impersonating one of the producers and making Topher think that he got Chris's job.
We've been watching you, kid, and we like what we see.
Well, thank you for noticing.
Only to then humiliate Topher at the elimination ceremony.
Here's a lesson. When it comes to showbiz, never play a player.
Admittedly, that is one of the funnier scenes of the entire season, but I feel like they could have done a lot more with this idea. I'd like to say that Topher is a perfect foil for Chris. You know, someone who emulates him so perfectly that Chris has no choice but to look himself in the mirror and question everything he does. Except no, Chris perfectly recognizes Topher as his perfect foil, and that's why he hates him.
How'd you know you was calling the producers?
It's what I would have done.
You know, going back to this season, I thought I would find Topher a lot more annoying than I did, but he was actually pleasantly surprising in how entertaining he was. Kinda wish we had gotten more time with him, to be honest. And hell, it's a missed opportunity that they didn't bring him back as the host of Redonkulous Race. Now, Dave is technically the next one to be eliminated, but I'm gonna save him for later in the video because A, he actually plays a pivotal part in the finale, and B, he's just such a fucking train wreck as a character. So let's skip over to the next two, who happen to get axed in the same episode, Max and Scarlet. Max is the ultimate personification of cartoonish evil. He has everything, the evil tracksuit, the evil hairdo, the evil laugh. He's more of a cartoonish villain than Mal was. That should tell you something. Oh, but it's okay, guys. He might have a penchant for world domination, but he has a soft side for cute little babies. Aww. I'm not annoyed that they went in this direction with his stereotype. He just doesn't interest me very much at all, and he's not nearly funny enough to justify any attention either, really. They try to make Max into this bumbling incompetent of sorts, whose evil plans always fail, but it doesn't really work for me. It's not gelling. There's also this weird thing where they try to make us think that there's a romance maybe between Max and Scarlet, except not really? I have no idea, and it would have been dumb anyway. Especially since all throughout the season, Scarlet repeatedly proves that she's the vastly intelligent one over Max. And naturally, that brings us to Scarlet. Oh boy.
I am not your sidekick! Scarlet, you look different.
At this point, Mr. Reynolds, I'm convinced you have a learning disability.
Scarlet is typically very quiet, but very intelligent. And when she does talk, oh, she makes sure you listen. The dynamic between her and Max this season is that he keeps talking to her like she's his sidekick, when in reality, she should be the one leading the two. And even then, she is way better off alone. What I like best about Scarlet is her sense of humor. It's more deadpan than you would think. They tried to make Dave the deadpan humor character similar to Noah, but it doesn't work as well. Scarlet's not as good at deadpan as Noah is, but she's much better at it than Dave is. But then you have the episode where she and Max are ejected from the game. And oh boy, it's a doozy. Scarlet manages to gain entrance into the island's control room, where she takes control of everything and threatens to destroy the entire island and everyone on it if Chris doesn't hand over the $1 million. Okay, let me back up a little. So first off, Pahkitew Island is mechanized, so everything that we see on the island is remote controlled. I actually really like this idea for the show. It does make this season stand out compared to the first season, where this island is not a total carbon copy of Camp Wawanakwa. With that in mind, however, once again, this is wasted potential. We only ever get bits and pieces of this island's true potential. We don't get to see its full capabilities being a mechanized machine. The majority of the insight we get into this island and how it works is in the episode where Scarlet and Max are eliminated, which is a real shame, honestly. There was a lot of potential here for greatness. So anyway, Scarlet plays her hand, Chris puts the onus on everyone else to stop her, they do, and then she and Max get ejected from the game. Scarlet for threatening to fuck everyone over, and Max purely for Chris being done with the entire shtick.
Yeah, I'm done with evil for now.
No, you're not.
Oh, so does that mean you've turned over a new leaf and you're not going to put the contestants in constant mortal danger anymore? No? Oh, well then go fuck yourself, dipshit!
Fuck you.
Jasmine is technically next to be eliminated, but like with Dave, I'm saving her for a little bit later, because like Dave, she also plays a pivotal role in the finale. At the very least, she's not a train wreck. Unlike our boy Dave! Oh dear lord. That leaves Sugar as the last one to talk about before we get to our fearsome foursome. Sugar is quite possibly my least favorite character of any Total Drama season or spin-off. I'm not kidding. Sugar's character is heavily influenced by Honey Boo Boo. She's a pageant queen that loves competition, she's loud, she's quite abrasive, she's gross, and she likes to pick imaginary fights with people for really no reason. Instantly, she gives me Owen vibes, but while Owen was used for toilet humor a lot of the time, he was still friendly and outgoing and very likable. Sugar really isn't. Now, I'm sure that Sugar does have her fans, and I don't begrudge anyone that does like her, but I am not one of those people, and I'm not going to pretend that I am. Probably the thing that pissed me off the most about Sugar's character was the way she antagonized Ella. Ella did literally nothing to Sugar, and yet Sugar bullied and harassed her every chance she got. When Chris officially put Ella on notice for her singing, Sugar literally schemed to get Ella to sing again just so Chris could kick her off the show. Why? Who fucking knows? Remember how I mentioned that pageants were Sugar's specialty? Well, that actually comes into play. See, the penultimate episode has the final three, that would be Sky, Sean, and Sugar, come up with their own mini challenge for everyone to participate in. And Sugar's mini challenge is a talent competition. I'll give you a minute to guess. No, you know what? Time's up. It's exactly what you think it is. Her challenge is a talent competition that she loses and is kicked off the show in the funniest possible way.
I personally believe competition shouldn't be based on points, but instead on your general awesomeness.
Now, one argument that I've heard is that this season is weak because it doesn't have a traditional default antagonist. And I don't necessarily agree with that. You don't always need an antagonist for this kind of show to work. Yes, it can be better if you have one, but you don't automatically need it to have it be good. Scarlet and Sugar are the two characters that fill the role of antagonist this season, but honestly, I don't think it works. I think with Scarlet, at least, there's a good idea for an antagonist there, but it's not fully realized. Then again, it really doesn't matter who's the antagonist if they're not even a likable character. A good antagonist is someone you love to hate, and that standard sadly does not apply to Sugar for me. And with her out of the way, it's time to talk about the last four contestants I've yet to talk about in detail. Sean, Jasmine, Sky, and Dave. Now, even though Sean was the winner of the version that I watched, I'm going to be talking about him and Jasmine now, and saving Sky and Dave for later. Mainly because I have a lot more to say on Dave and Sky than I do Sean and Jasmine, and I think I want to save the best for last. Jasmine is a survivalist expert raised in Australia. In terms of actual skill level, she might be the most qualified contestant the show's ever had. While she isn't afraid to take charge of a situation, she's also very outgoing and friendly. Besides Sean, the best example of Jasmine being a good friend is Sammy. She stands up for her to Amy and even encourages Sammy to take control of her life and get back at Amy for all the bullying she's done. She's also the only one that knows that Sammy is impersonating Amy after that little stunt in episode 3. But of course, the most important relationship she had was with Sean. Sean himself is a survivalist expert, but unlike Jasmine, he specializes in fantasies like zombie apocalypses. The two actually hit it off very well. But of course, if this relationship was a straight line towards romance, it wouldn't fit the total drama niche. From Sean's perspective, he's so stuck in his zombie obsession that he doesn't fully register right away that there's a budding romance between him and Jasmine, which causes him to miss some social cues. The most egregious of these being when Jasmine intentionally took a dive in the challenge in episode 5 just so Sean's team could have a chance to win so he wouldn't be eliminated.
She did that for me?
This sounds crazy, but maybe there's more to life than preparing for the undead to take over.
Yeah, that line was incredibly ham-fisted and lame, which really is just an indictment of how poor the writing got in the later seasons. She then gets pissed at herself for letting her feelings for Sean get in the way of winning and tries to distance herself from those feelings for a while. And then he spends the next few episodes trying to apologize to her and get her to forgive him, which she eventually does in the first Merge challenge when he sacrifices his chance at immunity just so Jasmine could be safe. Of course, Sean almost fucks it up later on when he agrees to share the prize money with Jasmine despite clearly not wanting to, and then dissing the idea that she has for what she's going to do with her share of the money.
It's always been my dream to have my own business, a flower shop and cage fighting school called Roses Are Red, Roses Are Blue.
Okay, that's the best idea I've ever heard anyone give for using the prize money. What do you think of it, Sean?
Could she have a worse plan for the money?
No, fuck you! The idea is brilliant!
A few years ago, my uncle opened up a tanning salon and lost everything. Bernie's Tanning Salon. His name wasn't even Bernie!
I have so many questions!
Huh, I didn't know that questionable life choices was a genetics thing. The consensus in the fandom seems to be that Sean is the best character from Pahkitew Island. And yeah, I can definitely see that arc. To be fair, there were more than a few instances this season where I just had to roll my eyes whenever Sean mentioned a zombie apocalypse or whatever, especially in regards to his relationship with Jasmine, but still, I enjoyed watching him. He was the least irritating of the cast, he was also one of the funniest, and even though his shtick annoyed me occasionally, it wasn't nearly as much as the way Sugar annoyed me. And hey, he and Jasmine get a happy ending, even in the alternate ending, so that's all good. They were the best pairing of the season, no doubt. Unfortunately, that now brings us to the worst pairing of the season, and quite possibly the worst in the entire franchise. Sky and Dave. Holy hell, where the hell do I even begin with these two? Let's start with Dave, I guess.
I hate you.
As I mentioned earlier, Dave is the poor man's version of Noah. The deadpan humor they try to give him doesn't work as well with him as it did with Noah. He starts out perfectly fine, but things get pretty dicey when he develops a crush on Sky. It opens just fine. It's your typical guy has a crush on a girl doesn't know if she reciprocates, will they get together, won't they get together. It's standard, but hey, it could be worse. Unfortunately, it does get a lot worse. Dave's behavior towards Sky becomes increasingly frightening. His crush on her turns into an outright delusion, not unlike the one Sean has about the undead. He pretty much throws all caution to the wind in order to get Sky to go out with him. It's almost like he lives in a fantasy world, but unlike with Sean, it's not charming whatsoever. It's very uncomfortable to watch, and I don't like it.
Sky's acting weird and I'm no dummy. I get it. It's 'cause I haven't kissed her yet.
I bet you're the kind of guy that would fuck a person in the ass and not even have the goddamn common courtesy to give him a reach around.
There's a point where Dave thinks that if he beats Sky in a challenge and rubs it in her face, she'll want to go out with him and be attracted to him. What?
I second that. What?
And then Sky snaps and basically tells Dave to get fucked, indicating that she isn't interested in him. Except for the fact that, yes, she is actually interested in him. Sky is an aspiring Olympian that's obsessed with winning this game. She gets along with everyone fine enough, and she doesn't really like to play dirty. But if you screw with her, oh, she'll make you pay for it. Other than her desire to win, the crux of her character comes from her relationship with Dave. They constantly flip-flop her. Oh, she does have feelings for Dave. No, she doesn't. Oh, she does again. Oh, she always had feelings for Dave. It's not that well handled in the meat of the season. But then we come to the end of the season. And that's where it gets really fucked up.
You done fucked it up!
So the final challenge is essentially a retread of the final challenge from Total Drama Island. A race around the camp. Whoever finishes first wins the million. Seems simple. But because this is season 6, yes, I'm still refusing to call it 5B because fuck you, the danger level has been raised to infinity. So Sky and Sean, the two finalists, get to choose a helper to assist them in the final challenge.
But you asked us who we would...
I know. I asked you who you wanted. I did that to be me.
You know, being self-aware that you're bad doesn't make you less bad. Just means that you don't care that you're bad.
They both get a turn at this screen thing, and they get one spin or a respin if they don't like their choice.
Who goes first will be decided by a coin toss.
Ow!
now, Sean wins!
Oh, fuck you, that was hilarious. It's all random. And by random, I mean Chris totally rigged the thing so that Jasmine and Dave would be selected. Hell, Dave got selected twice!
And your helper will be... Dave! Wow, what are the odds?
Now, here's where things get really stupid. Halfway through the challenge changes, and the helpers, Jasmine and Dave, instead become hinderers, sabotaging Sky and Sean's efforts to complete the race, because if neither of them completes the race in the time limit, Jasmine and Dave get to split the $1 million. Now, I actually think that's an interesting twist, at least in contrast to what the previous season pulled, whereas Chris seemingly changed the game on the fly because he was sick of people getting along or some dumb shit. Unfortunately, there is no alternate ending where Jasmine and Dave get to split the $1 million and Sean and Sky both lose. Now, that's not the problem. Well, that's a personal problem, but that's the least of this part's problems. No, the problem is how we lead into the reveal of this twist. Chris sits them all down for a break in the middle of the episode, where he proceeds to get Jasmine and Dave riled up so they can become good saboteurs. He accomplishes this by being a dickweed. First, he shows Jasmine Sean's confessionals where he admits he hates Jasmine's idea for what she'll do with her share of the money.
I'm doing this for her too. My goal of us not being eaten by zombies outweighs her stupid idea for the money.
I mean, on the one hand, I did find this moment to be really funny when I watched it, but on the other, it goes completely against the idea of a confessional. You know, those things where you air your grievances in private, where only the home audience gets to see it. I guess this is just another way for Chris to add drama to the show. Oh, but hold on to your ass, it gets even better. Because now we get Sky's side of this bullshit. And for that, Chris televises her audition tape. So I haven't mentioned this yet because it really hasn't been important until now, but for every generation of cast that the show produced throughout its life, at least for the main Total Drama series, they also produced these, quote, audition tapes, which are just brief glimpses into each character's life, giving us a quick idea of what their character is. It isn't much, but, you know, it gets the job done. It's fine. The thing is, though, that there were about 7 characters in total that didn't get an audition tape released. But none of them are really that important. Except for Sky's, because hers is the only one that's actually plot relevant. Go ahead, play the damn clip.
And if I do get on the show, I'll really miss my boyfriend, Keith.
What is the most unattractive male first name in the English language?
Keith.
No, ladies and gentlemen, you did not mishear that. Sky, our, favorite aspiring Olympian, had a boyfriend. Yes, I'm saying had as in past tense, because after he watches this show all the way through, there's no way in hell he's going to want to stay with her, and I really wouldn't blame him. But don't worry, folks. Dave is a calm, level-headed boy. I'm sure he's going to handle this whole thing extraordinarily well. Well, never mind.
That was the butt? But I have a boyfriend?
The only but here is you, dipshit. Yeah, there is so much about this horseshit that I want to unpack. I don't even know where I should start. Okay, let's start with the fact that this only works due to hindsight. Like, Chris is using the audition tape as a means of humiliating Sky and creating friction between her and Dave. But at that point in time, she had no way of knowing that she would actually meet a fellow cast member and fall in love with him. Yeah, that's the other thing!
Truth is, I was going to dump him before I left, but ran out of time, and I really like Dave.
Okay. So, first of all...
I really like Dave.
Why?
No, that's a fair question. Why do you like Dave? Like, in the beginning, it kind of made sense because he was just normal. But by this point in the show, he's a fucking lunatic. Either the state he's currently in is his true character, and he was just hiding it previously, or his obsession with Sky completely fucked him up in the head, and he's going to need some serious therapy when he goes home. But more to the point, Dave's character in-universe is not very appealing. He doesn't respect boundaries, he doesn't take no for an answer, he's susceptible to really shitty advice, and these are just the red flags that I can come up with off the top of my head. So yeah, I think questioning why you ever liked this sentient turd in the first place is completely fair. But that's not even the biggest question I have. The biggest question I have is, why the fuck didn't you ever just tell him you had a boyfriend? To be fair, there are like 1 or 2 instances throughout the season where Sky tries to tell Dave something. You know, in the form of, I like you, Dave, but that but is never elaborated on. Try saying that 5 times fast. But then she just kind of stops trying to tell him something. Yeah, in Dave's elimination episode, their relationship, whatever the hell you even want to call it at this, comes to a head when Sky snaps at him and berates him throughout the episode, telling him point blank that they'll never have a relationship. Unfortunately, thanks to the benefit of hindsight, her outburst looks a lot worse, but at that very moment, it was hard to think she was wrong to blow up at him for being a douchebag. But then you got this line.
I said I liked you, but you didn't want to hear the but. But that's not my fault.
Okay, but here's the thing, though. It kind of is. Now, I'm not about to pass myself off as an expert on romance. I am far away from being that. But how hard is it really to tell someone, I have a boyfriend? 4 words. 4. Hell, why the fuck didn't you even tell him in this scene? You're already pissed off at him. It would have been the cherry on top. It's not even like that classic plot line where she's trying to tell him that she has a boyfriend, but things keep getting in her way. They do that once, but then it gets dropped. Now, the question is, would Dave have believed her if she told him in that moment that she had a boyfriend back home? Honestly, with what we know about Dave's character, I'm inclined to say no. But that's the thing. Then, Sky, you would have been completely in the clear, because you had told him that you had a boyfriend, and he simply didn't believe you. Hell, it's not even like the show itself went out of its way to sabotage your efforts to tell him the truth. You just decided not to because reason. Congratulations, Sky. You're out 2 boyfriends for the price of 1. That takes real fucking talent, girl.
You blew it.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Dave is the psychopath in this pairing. He clearly has a lot of emotional and psychological issues he needs to get through before he can even have a healthy relationship. But Sky's not blameless either.
I do have a boyfriend, but he's not the one. And
For the love of God, shut your mouth.
Oh, but it's okay, guys, because it doesn't matter what ending you end up seeing. Dave loses in both of them.
At least things can only go up from here.
So that's the cast of Pahkitew Island. As I have said, I feel like overall, the Generation 3 cast is the weakest of the 3 generations. But it's not like there aren't characters here that I really like. I really loved getting invested in the romance between Sean and Jasmine. Even if Sean's zombie obsession did make me scratch my head more than a few times. And there were points where I felt like Jasmine's grudge against Sean for what happened in episode 5 was really uncalled for and dragged out for way too long. Then again, that is a stated part of her character, that she holds grudges for way too long. I also really liked Sammy, but I really would have loved more time with her to develop her more as a character. You know, separate from being just Amy's twin. Scarlet was actually a character I found myself weirdly invested in, but then they kind of went and made her generic evil, and the appeal went away. And then there's Topher, who I consider the Dakota of this season. A character that I really expected to dislike going into the season, but was pleasantly surprised coming out how much I enjoyed him. And I wish he had gotten even more time to shine. And again, I still say it's a missed opportunity that they didn't bring him back for Redonkulous Race. Unfortunately, the remainder of the cast is either severely underdeveloped or just incredibly lame. Or, in the case of Sugar, unbelievably frustrating and aggravating. But of course, it's not just about the characters, it's also about the challenges and the environment. So how do they stack up this season? Well, I already mentioned that Pahkitew Island is artificial, which does help it stand out from Camp Wawanakwa. And it is nice that it's not just a factoid tossed out to the side. There are 3 episodes where it comes into play significantly. There's Topher's elimination episode, where Jasmine, off the cuff, remarks,
"Why haven't I seen this part of the island before? It's like it just popped into existence."
There's the episode where Scarlet turns evil, where the whole plot of the episode is focused on the island malfunctioning. And then, of course, the finale. And while it is nice that this artificial island idea isn't just thrown to the side and it is used in a couple of episodes, I really wanted to see it utilized even more. Again, this is a byproduct of having a shorter season than what we've gotten pre-Revenge of the Island. Now, as for the challenges themselves, Well, I can definitely say that I enjoyed watching the challenges presented in this season more than I did in All-Stars. There seemed to be a little bit more variety this time around in terms of both presentation and outcomes. What do I mean by outcomes? Well, for one example, there's a challenge where the teams have to race across the island in hamster balls, and I just realized that there are 2 challenges this season that involve racing across the island towards a finish line. Need I remind you, there are only 13 episodes this season. But the challenge devolves into everyone ending up underground and trying desperately to return to the surface, and because nobody crossed the finish line in the proper way, the challenge was deemed a total bust. No one was declared a winner, which also means that nobody was declared a loser. The episode was just declared a bust.
You skipped dozens of awesome challenges. We don't even have enough footage for an episode.
Objection!
So, how the hell do you explain what we're currently watching, huh, Mr. McLean? Look, in the grand scheme of things, this isn't that much, but I do appreciate this little bit of variety in presentation. Unfortunately, that also cuts the other way. Remember the Chris McLean immunity statuette? The one that was introduced in Revenge of the Island? Well, it's not here this season. Nor is the concept of exile or even Boney Island. Yeah, the gameplay mechanics that I kind of wanted to get behind are gone after just 2 seasons. I suppose you could argue that in-universe, the statuette just got lost when Camp Wabanakwa sank, and this new island is way too far from Boney Island to utilize it, but even then that's just lame, and it doesn't even get an in-universe mention anyway. The idea of an immunity idol adds another layer of strategy to these types of games, and I was very excited when they introduced it in Season 4, so now to have it gone in Season 6 is a major bummer on a personal level. Also, in the previous 2 seasons, in the penultimate episode, the winner of the challenge would get to handpick their opponent for the finale. That is not here. Instead, whoever crosses the finish line last, or in the case of the penultimate episode, whoever gets the lowest score amongst the 3 challenges, is automatically eliminated. And while that is more straightforward, it's also kind of boring. Ironically, for a show that touts drama, just having it be a straightforward last across the finish line is eliminated really isn't all that dramatic. I suppose in Sugar's case you could argue that it was dramatic because the deciding challenge was a talent competition, which is her thing, but honestly, no, I'm not really going for it. I very much preferred the winner of the penultimate challenge having total autonomy in picking their opponent, even if I felt like they picked the wrong person. Looking at you, Lightning. Overall, Total Drama Pahkitew Island is a bit of a mess. It's definitely better than All-Stars, but part of that is just how much of a disaster All-Stars was. It's hard to be worse than what All-Stars turned out to be, and thankfully this season didn't plunge to those depths, but it's still not very good. And unfortunately, this means that the original Total Drama series went out on such a mediocre note. Fortunately, though, this is not the end of the Total Drama franchise, as this series would spawn 2 spin-offs. One that is still in production and releasing new episodes at the time of this video's release, and one that lasted only 1 season of 26 episodes. Would it surprise you if I told you that the spin-off that only got 1 season is of better quality? Join me next time when I delve into the world of Total Drama spin-offs, starting with...
This is... the Redonkulous Race.
No, see, it's brilliant. It's a pun. The name of the show is The Redonkulous Race, and the new host's name is Dawn. Redonkulous? Get it? Do you get it? Well, so do I, and it's a stupid pun.